we just listened to someone. We just listened to Marcellian and Flame watch a comment from Towel with a very vague hint that the next WoW expansion is going to be different, and not in a bad way. Let's have fun with this. Let's do our own speculation. All right, totally pulling shit out of our ass, pure shit. All right, let's just have fun with this for a little bit. What would make Tenno really different, in a good way, right? And let's try to think of something objectively better. Now, that means player housing. I don't know, right? But let's go with what may be objectively like, holy shit. Okay, this is good. What is something that I would say, like, not like half the players or 3/4 of the players. Let's get to like 95%, right? What would be like really close to objectively good for the game, for 10.0 as it is like right now? One of the things that easily come to mind would be the faction split, dissolving the divide. Things that I've been championing for. I'm gonna make a list. We're gonna make a list. If I can make a thing, then I'll make the thing, and I'll switch to the desktop, and I'll make the thing. Okay, the stuff that will make 10.0 different, and like not in a bad way. Woo woo. Okay, so let's do it. All right. I said dissolve the divide. No more. Goes away. I can't. Now. This is debatable, but I can't not see. But I think that the folks that are against it are. I'm being biased. Sorry, guys. I think it's just irrational. It's totally irrational. Like, wanting to preserve it as it is, the status quo, it's not working. Any sort of change that Blizzard may try to do, it may change the seesaw and all that, but it's not going to do anything. Fuck, just throw out the seesaw and let everyone play in the sand. Really stupid analogy, but that would be it. Dissolve the divide. Goes away. Now we need to be very careful about the way that it's worded. I've seen tweets that say delete the factions or merge the factions, and I think the best way to communicate this to players is to not even mention the word factions, really, or reference the Horde and Alliance, because they're not going to be affected at all. Right? Nothing's going to happen there. If 10.0 is going to be like really different, it's, I think a big thing is going to be because everyone is just able to play and party and guild and whatever together. There are small indicators that we saw in the upcoming announcement that there are going to be bundles of character transfers. Like, hey, that's cool. But notice they didn't say like there were bundles of like much of anything else, like faction transfers and things like that, which normally I guess would be like, which I guess would be a good idea to have it, but they didn't. Maybe it's because they just want to keep that money, or maybe it's because it's not going to be needed because the faction transfer thing, that's going to go away. I don't know. I want to hear you guys vomit your own ideas. I'm going to read off stuff because I'm just trying to, quickly think of things off the top of my head. Like, what would make 10.0 different in a good way? All right. I want to get more from you guys, and then I'll cut this into onto the other channel later. Let's see. Less story, but double the story. Like one part in Nazaroth and one in Shadowlands. Oh, so are you thinking like we'll continue doing the Shadowlands story? Item level, HMN suggests item level not mattering. Let me rate these, because I want to put these down on the list, but I want to give my take as to whether I think it, whether we're on the same page on it. Probably. Let's see. More factions. Now, Def, are you talking about more factions as in more playable factions or just more reputations? Because if you say more playable factions, then I'll be like, I don't know, man. Less story, but double the story. Like one. Let's see. Item level not mattering. Stats on items mattering instead. The higher difficulty of the content, the more stats. Well, item level is item level not just a summary of the power level of an item minus special effects and the actual stat allocations? Because otherwise, item level is just like if I were to say item level 239, I can tell you, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'd be able to tell you, okay, it's this much stamina and this much main stats, and you have a budget of this much secondary stats to work with, and then it's a matter of if you're actually taking advantage of those stats, because then it's a little bit relative. Make professions matter again. All professions, yes. Yes. Yes, please. Please. A stronger 10.0 expansion, or a stronger expansion would, in my strong opinion, that I will, grind into people's faces, would be a strong emphasis on professions. I hear a lot from people whenever I say those sorts of things. I hear a lot of people come back at me and say, "Well, I don't care about professions; they're not important to me." And I'm trying to think of what would be a good compromise for people who don't participate in professions. Does that, should that necessarily mean that your character or that you as a player are less capable than other people? And I want to say yes, but it seems mean, but I still want to say yes, because it's like, hey guys, I want to be a top PvPer. Just do arenas and stuff. I don't want to do arenas. It's that's the kind of vibe I get from that sort of discourse. Let's see. Grinds that feel like we can finish them. I like that. It's vague, but grinds that we can finish. Now, Shadowlands does do that mathematically. There is a cap to conduits and renown and item level and the other things. Yeah, so there is, but I think I get what you mean. I think this needs more explanation. People want to be able to I think in general, people want to be able to log in, do a couple of things, feel like they're getting stronger, but still be able to, and based on their schedule, be able to make it to the end of that journey. And then from there, have the option to stop playing until the next season, or to switch to an alt and do that sort of thing. And of course, there is a strong sentiment that alts there should be a benefit to alts in such a way that if there was an optimal way to play, it would be, if you have 3 or 4 characters, you'll be able to switch between these 3 or 4 characters with ease and be able to like do all these things and still feel really capable, even compared to just like a person who only plays as one character. I think that Blizzard tries to resist that because they don't want to make the single character player feel like they're being left out. I think that's a lot of what happened in Legion, in my opinion. There's a lot of story, a lot of other things, a lot of fun stuff that were spread across all the 36 specializations, and for some people that didn't feel very fair. But I feel like that ties into this kind of a lot too. Let's see. Let's spin this further. When you are hated at another faction, getting quests and special stuff there because you steal it from them. Oh, you want a third faction? I know I'm being a gatekeeper here for like these ideas, but I really don't think splitting the factions further apart is going to be effective at all. If they were to introduce a third faction, I doubt anyone would join. It would have to be, hey Sunshine, yeah, thank you. It would have to be so compelling that it's going to make everyone want to go there, and then all the other factions are going to get screwed. Like, I have a feeling that if there is a third faction, who's going to get hurt by it most? The Alliance. They're going to get hurt by it more than anybody, because it already seems, the perception, without knowing the facts of the numbers, the perception is that they're in a bad spot. Horde are okay, but I have a feeling that competitive Horde, they're not going to go anywhere unless there is a reason that this third faction is going to feel like a competitive thing to go to. If it's just for cosmetics, like hey, that's great, but if a third faction is also going to lead to people not being able to play with each other, that's not going to work out. If anything, dissolving the divide, it turns every race into a faction, if you want to think of it that way. And there could potentially be some cool gameplay out of that, but I'm not sure. Player housing, fuck it, I'll just put it in. I know that I was like, I think a lot of people would disagree with it, but you know what? Screw it. I think we can sell this, because it's not just plain house. It's all the stuff that's around it too. Player housing equates to stuff to find and collect. It equates to like a very bustling economy. Like, I've had, like, Shadowlands, like, while in its current state of professions, it's poised to have like this crazy renaissance with professions that revolves around player housing. It's like, let's say you want a chair, right? This requires like tremendous amounts of work. But imagine there are like all these different kinds of chairs that you can create from vanilla. But and there are unique chairs that you get from BC and Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm and Mob and Warlords and Legion and etc. I forgot the rest. It enables all the content from previous expansions to feel a little bit relevant again, because it's like, oh, if I want to get the recipe for that chair, or get them, I'm gonna have to go into that old instance or old dungeon or that old reputation and buy that recipe. If I wanna create this chair, I'm gonna have to get wood in Northrend or Outland or whichever the hell expansion that it's from. So it's gonna have these gatherers and crafters zipping all over the planet in order to get this stuff. Speaking of, what was I talking about the other day? It was everyone can gather. Basic gathering profession. I would love. This wouldn't be a huge change, but it would feel huge, because then everyone would be able to like participate in the gathering game. Maybe specialized gatherers can do it better than others. That would be fun. Let me keep reading again, because professions are like To me, that's like that'd be a huge boon. Blizzard is no stranger to saying something can't be done only because they have plans for it later, but still want it to be exciting. They are definitely coy about things. What they've been saying about the faction divide has been like, it's been such a tease, but it also feels like a half confirmation. Who knows? Like, if or when Blizzard starts doing interviews and stuff like that, when they do their round of finally peeking their heads out and talking with the community, I don't know if it's going to start this week. It could start this week. It probably sounds like a good idea. They might be poised to like do those things really soon. Maybe we'll get some big news. And without a BlizzCon or a BlizzCon line, since they canceled those for the coming year, it kind of frees up the ability for WoW for Blizzard to just announce things, whenever they feel like or when they're ready. Like they don't have to feel pressured to either produce something that is presentable at a BlizzCon, or otherwise put things off. Even if they are ready to show, they just hold off until BlizzCon to like show these things. I think the worst thing is to like pressure Blizzard into showing something or talking about things that they're not ready to talk about. So Lo-Fi is asserting that they want more is to have more story, but it's slower with mini patches and dual stories from different view angles. For example, Azeroth should not be under constant attack of the Scourge. Let's be there then too. It would have been cool if every month or two they had they redid the Scourge event during Shadowlands, just cause I think that would be cool. And I love the event anyway, because I loved burning Suramar to the ground. The different races can have more independent story arcs without a requirement to be red team versus. Yeah, I would love that. God, professional race, racial quest lines. Now I know it's hard too. I think historically Blizzard has been very skittish about creating content that is like pretty narrow in scope, and that was pretty apparent with the heritage armor. Like there's still heritage armor sets that we're missing, and I have a feeling that 10.0 is going to. I'm hoping that 10.0 is going to is enough time, more than enough time for Blizzard to finally get around to doing like orcs and humans and whoever else that's missing. I don't remember off the top of my head, sorry. But having racial quest lines is something that would be easier to pull off because, okay, cool, we don't have to worry about like the factions. However, that's also a burden too, because now Blizzard has to worry about splitting off their efforts into all these different directions with each individual race, as opposed to, hey, let's have a horde quest line and an alliance quest line or something like that. Now it's almost like we can burden them with both. And to be honest, we should burden them with both anyway, because we want everything, and it doesn't hurt to just ask for everything. I'm not gonna say, oh, we shouldn't ask for that because it's too hard for them. Fuck that. I'm not that much of a I'm not that much of a kiss ass that I'm gonna give them an excuse to not work. No way, dude. Let's see, Aldevar Heart mode. Let's see, what is it? What's Def saying? Have character can earn exalted reputation. I guess it's hard to explain on Twitch, Def. I'm trying to, let's see, can group up with anybody who has similar exalted reputations. I'm really averse to having any barrier that prevents people from grouping up with each other beyond basic stuff like, at level 1 you shouldn't be able to queue up for LFR for Shadowlands or something like that, right? But I think that there should be fewer barriers. Now I get that, hey, these are barriers that you can take down, but having those things there at all, it's like it's God, I can't imagine like how fucked up that would be for queuing up for content. unless, oh, okay, well, in that case, dungeons won't be part of these restrictions. So now we're creeping with the scope of design and having to think of these certain things, when, at least in my opinion, just fuck all of that stuff and just let people join and group up together, like, for things. Just keep, if anything, keep it like super limited. AJ Man says, by refocusing on stats, you have players think more about what actually changes their skills, crit or haste, as opposed to a brain dead higher, better. The players have adapted to that, though. They've adapted to that in such, now some players, I should say, some players have adapted that to that thanks to Sims, and social media has done a lot to magnify or to basically play the game for people. That's one of the things that I think is really lost, that has really been lost about WoW, and it's thanks to the internet, social media, the ability for information to be shared through, with the snap of a finger, just through like a simple Wowhead article or a tweet that announces, hey, I figured this out, and then everyone adopts it, and it becomes the thing to do. And if you don't do the thing to do, then you're wrong and you're bad and you'll never get into groups. That's a box that can't be closed, I don't think. We're not, people aren't going to be stupid, when it comes to like their gearing, because they're going to figure it out or because someone just told them the answer already. Which I find really unfortunate. Let's see. Different races can have more something. Nightborn and High Mountain Torn had no reason to pick a side. Yeah, they did. Freaking Bane Bloodhoof is all like, hey, Mela, you should join my team. And she's like, ooh, look at you. And Bane's like, yeah, look at me. Look at my something, whatever. Look at this. And then Mela would be like, that's a bowl of fruit. And he's like, oh, what happened? Oh, Blizzard. So that'd be fun, though. Lo-Fi says, I would not only want to be friendly with them, also achievements like the hated one. Professions are pretty screwed. That's nice. Taking a page out of 14 from earlier today, improve Truma Sargeras. Terms of service. Improve the terms of service to add penalties for real money transactions in LFG. There already are. Yeah, there already are, Lily. I think professions were quite, I think professions were quite strong at the beginning of Shadowlands. They are always strong for the first few months. The problem is how quickly they fall off. I gotta disagree on that. I feel like professions are one of the many facets of Shadowlands that took a hit because of the pandemic and the fuck up on production, and Blizzard had to make some hard decisions. And we saw that. We saw fewer of the, like little item enhancements, like little attachments that you can put onto crafted pieces. Like that was nixed. Archaeology as a whole, that was scrubbed for the expansion with a pretty half-ass reason. Well, why? And so on and so forth. So I would love to see just more efforts going into improving that, like on a permanent basis, not just, okay, this expansion was cool, this expansion was not so cool. They keep changing things up in ways that it's like, okay, it's cool, they're experimenting with all these things, Obliterum, Scrapper, doing stuff with legendaries, but I felt like with Shadowlands especially, professions were super minimal, and I was overall not very enthused about it. I'm mostly trying to make characters have a unique story experience. Meanwhile, I feel the reputation system is woefully underused. That I can get behind, Def. I just don't agree about being able to restrict having players just want to play with each other. I don't think that's the right call to make. but one of my favorite experiences with questing and daily quest content was with Mr. Pandaria, because every time you hit one of those reputation milestones, like when you went from friendly to honored, honored to revered, revered to exalted, there was like a brief quest line, a little quest, to show, to give you a feel of what your daily efforts are doing for like these particular factions. And it's something that I know that I was harping about a bunch during Legion, especially because I was like, yeah, dude, like they could have done this, they could have done this, so that way we can kind of have a little bit more, we can learn a little bit more about like the Court of Ferrantis faction and this other faction and so on and so forth. And that didn't happen. I would have loved for it to be a thing. This is why AJ Man wants a refocus on stats over item level. Then you could have certain stat distributions linked to certain expansions professions. Wait, what? Then you could have certain stat distributions linked to certain expansions professions. Yeah, I'm not getting that. And again, like item level is very simply a label for stat budget. That's all it is. If you removed item level and you just change things on stats, even someone like me can do the math and be like, okay, so this kind of item that has these kinds of primary stats and these kinds of secondary stats, I could, I'd be able to take those numbers, do a couple of item comparisons, and then come up with a number or a label to illustrate what kind of item this is. And from that, people can at a glance take a look and like see, okay, this thing is going to be better. And item level it's no longer a unique thing to WoW. You see it all over the place. Pretty much every, I can't think of games that don't have that. Some sort of numerical summary to describe like what your power level is. Remove all race and class restrictions. Okay, there we go. That would be something that I know that I'm against this. I don't like this. Yet. Gnome Demon Hunters? Nah, I don't buy into it. Lightforged, Draenei, Demon Hunters? Nah, don't really buy into it. However, all they need to do is write the story. I've said this so many times, I'm going to say it again. All they need to do is write the story. If the next expansion is like, some demon hunter dude is like, hey, so I know there's no demons around here anymore, but anyone want to fight demons? Huh? And then people will be like, me, I want to do it. Then they can just make some quest line or have some quick introduction for something like that. Done. Just like that. It's because, the Demon Hunters make a good example. Death Knights as well. Actually, Death Knights make an even better example. But Demon Hunters make a good example because the story of Demon Hunters took place canonically in the Burning Crusade. And in the Burning Crusade, we didn't really know about mechanomes. Draenei just kind of arrived at the time. Not just kind of arrived, but Draenei were not being recruited as demon hunters at the time. These other people were not being recruited, plain and simple. So that story is set. If they were to write a new story like what they did with Death Knights, and that was a very easy story too. So how did it sum up? It summed up to, so over the past like 10 something years, we just gathered a shitload of bodies, and over the course of history or the past whatever years, especially during the faction war, we found more bodies. So we gathered them all up and we made a new generation of Death Knights. Ta-da! That's it. That's all the story that needed to be written. It's that simple to lift all those restrictions. Some of them would be like not harder, but there would need to be like efforts that go into it. Like everyone can be a warrior. I think everyone can be a warrior, a hunter. I can't recall what races can't be hunters, but some of them they just need to be implemented. Boom, nothing needs to be done. Some of what I consider the special classes, though, those would be shaman, paladins, druids. Those three hybrids, they have clubs that are normally associated with them, and so each of these races would need to either join one of these clubs, or there would need to be a new club. And by club, I'm talking about the Earthen Ring. I'm talking about the Cenarian Circle. I'm talking about the Knights of the Silver Hand, that sort of thing. So these races, can join those, or they can make their own. Write the story, and it's done. I think this would be huge. It would rattle people, kind of like lifting the faction divide. People would be like, "Hey, that's not right," but that's kind of the WoW clearly doesn't care about its lore, but as long as they write the story, then I think that's fine. I think that I very, very passionately think that that's all it takes. Sorry I'm behind on chat, because I wanted you guys to share what you guys would think would make Tenno different and be like, not in like a good way. Woo woo. This will be the YouTube title. Let's see. Have the story acknowledge who my character is, race, class, etc., and what feats they have done. That would be such a cool flavor thing. You know what? Cool. Flag, class, class and achievements. We're called the Champion of Azeroth on the regular, right? It'd be cool if there was dialogue that could pull up a random title and from there give some sort of random text like, "Hey, that's the ambassador. They were exalted with like so many people," something like that. I think little flavor bits like that would be like super, super cool. Platycus explains, and I won't be able to understand this, I apologize. Guild Wars 2 horizontal progression works because the game was built on that. Same with Guild Wars 1. It's hard to make that work in WoW because of player expectations. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to begin to understand that. Take time walking events off a rotation and make it evergreen. Now this one I think is a bit controversial, and so here, let me type this instead. I'm not going to talk about this. Isn't time walking, but let's max players queue for leveling content. This is something that we can't do right now. Right now in Shadowlands, as well as BFA, and I think it was like this in Legion too. If you're a max level player and you want to queue up for like low level content, the lowest you can go is within the current expansion. So like right now, context in Shadowlands, as a level 60 character, I can level up for normal dungeons, and then I can be teamed up with level 51 players, level 50, 51 players, and smash Necrotic Wake or something like that. I want to be able to, as a level 60, queue up, and then I'm in like fucking Dead Mines or something. I don't see any problem with that. Just disable my abilities, make it awkward. I don't care how awkward it gets. Disable my abilities or fuck my item level up. Fuck me hard, daddy. And just let me play with these low level people. Let me be burly or let me be humbled by getting smashed because the scaling's all like jacked up and stuff. What's that? For what? Okay. Okay. But yeah, that would be, to me, that's more important than time walking. To me, time walking is different. Time walking is a holiday. It's an event where instead of scaling me down to that content, time walking takes these things and scales it up to current content as like a celebration. Celebrate good times, something. But I'd also want time walking to be like supercharged too. Kind of like how Legion is being given that sort of treatment. I would love to see that. I would love to see like more celebrations like that. Like imagine BFA. I think I talked about this the other day. BFA time walking. Let's have Mythic Plus. Cool. Let's have Warfronts. Let's have time walking Warfronts. Let that be a thing. And the Mythic Plus affix. Going back to Mythic Plus, the Mythic Plus affix, corruption. Fucking writes itself. It's so easy. Sounds nasty. Sounds crazy, but it could be cool. I think that would be done, easy. I think that'd be awesome. Yeah. Let's see what else. Have factions only matter in World PvP and nowhere else. Battlegrounds too. Battlegrounds to a certain extent. Let's see. Make time walking always available and the rotation, with the time walking rotation giving double the loot and rep. Double the loot would be, nice, but then we gotta put context into it as well. Like time walking is essentially just like leveling dungeons, and you graduate from that eventually. It's like what else comes from time walking that you would get, and then that's where you get like the weekly events and things like that. But I think there could be more that's added to it. Would it be like this big revolutionary change though? Not the big deal. But I think letting allowing this one feels soft. It doesn't feel impactful. There would need to be a game-wide currency like Justice or Valor. I talked about this too. I tend to talk up my own ideas. Sorry, guys, but it's because I think it works. Having a game-wide currency, so let's say, for example, why highlighting this one? Why, as a max level player, why would I give a shit about queuing up for leveling content? There's got to be some sort of reward. Unfortunately, doing it for the fun of it, that's great. But if you want to get that adoption rate to feel high and for the queues to be like pretty friendly, you're gonna want to incentivize max level players to farm for something. And maybe there could be a little something there, like Justice or Valor or whatnot, and then they can use that on cool things that are important for them. Meanwhile, people who are leveling, they have people to play with. And they get levels and experience and gear and that sort of thing. So having needs a loop. Needs a good ass loop. Not an ass loop, a good ass loop. Player fortressing. Like garrisons, yeah. Wouldn't that be kind of like garrisons? Guild housing over player housing. It makes a great new gold sink and a material sink for bots. Now, one of the big reasons that I have not been as fond of guild housing as opposed to individual player housing is because at the moment, players are not encouraged to join a guild. Right now the incentives are with pugs. However, and this is me just making an assumption, pugging sucks. It's very toxic. It's very volatile. There's the freedom of being able to do things at your own time. You don't have to worry about the politics and the cliques of dealing with guilds. But I still think that's better than dealing with pugs, to be honest. And people who are like, oh, well, you could eventually like make like a static group or find a group of friends that you can run with all the time. That's almost the same thing, right? It's almost the same thing as having a guild. It's just smaller and not a big deal. I do think that there needs to be more incentives for people who want to, continually run together. Let's see. Player housing with a combination of garrison style plots with farms from Pandaria. This isn't really a good idea, but I think it'd be cool if the next hub or capital city or whatever in WoW, or even our own. Like we can do like little customizations that are similar to player housing, but maybe not. Like, hey, if there's like a certain city district that we can customize and sort of make into our own slice of WoW, that might be neat. But yeah, that's a really half-ass idea. They have the tech for logging trees in game from Warlords. They have the tech from logging trees with herbalism. To be perfectly honest, like they can change nodes, add nodes, and they're just trees, and you get wood from them. Ta-da! Yeah, it's even easier than you think. Just get wood from herbing. That's it. Let's see. The Tenno patches exist to add tiny patches. Very tiny patches. Add tiny little things throughout the world in old zones and expansions to make the world feel like it advances based on story. I had some idea where, in some patch, they would patch a town like Crossroads, and you would go, there would be like some daily content that you can do, or they ask for things like, hey, champion person, can you get us like a bunch of silver swords or whatever? And then you give it to them, and then they wrap up, and then they give you like a tribute reward. Like they give you like a tiny bit of gold or something like that. And I had some other idea too, where in major hubs or towns or whatever, there's like a little hitching post, like a mini stable. And in that mini stable, your favorite mounts are up there, like 2 or 3. And then you can just, you can go there and you can click on them, and then you have like a speed buff whenever you go to these hitching posts and mount up and go. Now, of course, you can mount up on your own too, or you can mount up, go to the hitching post, click on the other mount, and then enjoy the super speed buff from there. But I thought that was like a nice little immersive thing that gives you that little tiny slice of WoW out in the game world. It'd be kind of neat. Get rid of world quests and filled bar quests. Bring back rep dailies that tell a story and expand as you hit the different thresholds. So, that's controversial though, man. And world quests. This one I'm not sure would like really. I don't know if this would make the list, because we got to replace it with something. And what you're saying is bring back rep dailies. And I know that from what I recall from people's feedback, not everyone was happy about Korthia dailies, or Mechagon dailies, or Nazjatar dailies. Some folks were like, no, we'd rather have that fill up the bar sort of thing. And I kind of like having the hybrid model, with like right now it's a weird hybrid, because we have the weekly Korthia thing where we sing our song, do our dance, go up and down the zones, fill that up, and ta-da, we're done. I kind of liked that too. So I feel like the future is in some sort of hybrid model. I don't buy into it being so static though. Or maybe that weekly Korthia daily, maybe instead it can be more like the Mechagon model, where I think that was a daily thing, right? I'm not remembering this too well. So like over in a zone or whatever, there's a big fill up the bar. Sorry, I'm not fulfilling your dream here, but there's a big fill up the bar, and you can do it any way you fucking want. You can kill a bunch of elites. You can pick up treasures. You can do the daily quests that are there, or a combination of all those things. I think that's a lot of the I think that's what I'm starting so bad. I think that's what a lot of people liked about those sorts of fill up the bar quests, because it gave you the freedom to do things the way that you wanted to, in the way that you wanted to. I remember when doing patch 8.3, I did an experiment. Can I do this with a fresh alt, with like no gear, pretty much? And it was hard, because I had to get through the intro, going through I had to go through the intro. It was like pretty tough, and then eventually I made it to like Uldum and the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, and I couldn't just take on mobs. No way. I had to go around and like just pick shit up and do like one easy daily in order to fill up that bar. And then I got like the cool reward with the gear, and then I was able to eventually gear up a little bit and overcome that sort of content. So having that sort of freedom, I like a lot. In Mists, I think that was when it was the most binary, where you either maxed out your daily cap or else. You would run that risk of just feeling, but you run that risk of feeling like you're falling behind because you didn't do everything and you had to do like all these dailies and manage your time and quest limits correctly. Bring back Wintergrasp and Tolbarad style world bosses. These current world quest style ones are just boring, laggy Zerg fests. I would love to see that. Sharding and phasing would do weird things to it though, because yeah, Wintergrasp is a battleground now. I wouldn't mind them bringing Tolbarad back. I don't think that's a thing you can queue up for right now, right? Alchemists suggest make Azeroth matter. No matter if it's Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdoms, Northrend, just quit with the whole there's new worlds out there we must go to. Stay on Azeroth for a change. In Warlords we went to an alternate planet. In Legion, we spent most of our time on Azeroth, but then we went to space. And in in BFA, BFA we did stay on Azeroth. And then we went into like this alternate mind fuck dimension. And then now in Shadowlands, we're definitely not in Shadowlands. I think it's maybe instead of like staying on Azeroth, resolve some of the shit going on. I shouldn't put swears on some of the stuff going on. Please, you know. Let's see. For all grouping together in PvE thoughts about an interface option to show opposing faction as your faction. I like factions, and I'd be okay with cross-faction PvE with that option. I feel like trying to preserve faction identity while letting everyone play together, it creates all of these different what-if scenarios. How about this? How about this? And it would be... I never like saying that it's too much work for Blizzard, but it doesn't seem like a smart move to try to balance that feeling. I think that there is... I feel confident that there's still a way to preserve faction pride, you know, Horde and Alliance pride, and still be able to play together with in an unintrusive way. I'm very confident that there's a way around that. Not everyone will agree with it, but I think that in the face of being able to just play with each other, we'll eventually stop giving a shit, and we'll get over it really, really fast. Really, really fast. Because what are you gonna do if you're trying to make a group? You're almost good to go. You need a healer. No one's been queuing up, and then you finally see one, and it's like a gnome priest. Are you gonna refuse that because of faction pride? No, you're gonna fucking get that person. Because if you don't, and if you're like, fuck that, man, I'm not gonna bring that gnome priest for the Horde, you're gonna have people be like, oh fuck, it's one of these guys. Fuck it, I'm out of here. I just want to play, dude. I'm pretty sure that mentality is much stronger than... Your faction pride will dissolve. Your faction pride will definitely be put into question because you want to be able to play. It will be challenged. And unfortunately, I think it'll be broken. But I think in the long run that's okay. Because I think I think that identity, it's important, but we're at a point where it's compromising gameplay. Um, let's see. Nightborn have every reason. Oh wow, I'm that behind. Where I'm finally getting to the Lorthamar reference. Holy shit. Well, we're gonna be here for a few hours, boys and girls. Enjoy coffee with soul. Let's see. I guess I was referencing the potency of crafting rather than the general feel of crafting. I understand your point. I can agree with it. Rep rewards should not be locked behind a second grind. If I grind out a reputation to Exalted, I should not have to grind anima to also buy the cosmetic. What do you need to rep up with and spend anima for? Oh, I think that's with reference to like some of the other covenants. I think Night Fae is one of them, where you got to do some shit with the mushroom dude and then blow the anima on the stuff. I think, yeah, it's very imbalanced there because Kyrian doesn't have anything like that. It's just like, hey, here's the thing, go get stuff. So sucks to be Night Fae, doesn't it? Go Kyrian. I think if we could stay at level, let's see. I think we can stay at level 60 and just have story progression. We're not getting new talents or stuff anyway. Oh, okay. This one is not going to be on the list, but I'm just going to type it in anyway because it's a talking point. Game stays at level 60 forever. People will be so. I talked about this like more than a year ago. I talked about it a long time ago. Maybe I'll bring it up again in some separate video. But in theory, what can happen going forward is that in the 10.0 expansion, Shadowlands will be shuffled back into like the level 10 through 50 experience, like all the other expansions. And then our level is squished sort of again. And then we just go through that same cycle. So we're always going to be squished forever. Level 60 is it. And the numbers that we see, that's it. We're not going to see inflation go up like that like ever again. The squish will just happen every expansion. I think it would piss people off so much, but because of the feeling that comes from it. But I also think that it's the most sustainable way to deliver a consistent gameplay experience every time, and the numbers will always feel kind of familiar. There's a lot more to that though, because it sounds horrific. Because it's like, wait, so I've been playing through like all these different things, and in the end, it doesn't matter. It'd be so controversial if they would do that. But I also think that it would be the best thing for any long-term MMO to have a constant and regular squish. But yeah, no, that's not gonna be on there. But I at least wanted to highlight for a bit. What I meant by stat distribution was the idea of wanting 1/3 of stats in strength, half in haste, and the rest in crit. You would still be able to disseminate that into just a number, unfortunately. Let's see. I'm on the Death Knight part. Torn Rogue? Yeah, Torn Rogue. Maybe that one will have a special quest line. A special quest where you learn how to be, where Draenei and Tauren and whoever else can't be rogues, they go to like rogue school. Oh, that'd be hilarious. Rogue school. Special kind of thing for rogues who you never thought would ever be rogues. Let's go to rogue school, guys. You pop in over at with the Unchained, the Undamned, the Uncovered. The people under Dalaran. Those folks. And then you go to rogue school. That'd be hilarious. You could just say players are special and let them do whatever they like. And boom, dwarf druid. I still think that they could just do a quick intro, kind of like what Bolvar did in BFA when they opened up Death Knights for everyone. I'm gonna try to skim, but it's hard. On the idea of dungeons, how about also adding the Mythic Plus and Challenge Mode system to all the old dungeons? I think that would take a while to do. And it would also, yeah, I think that would take a while to do, because count how many dungeons there are before Legion. It's a lot of dungeons, dude. And even if you were to cut that number by into like just 1/3 of that, that's still a lot of dungeons that they would need to make a mythic. They would need to make a Mythic Plus for, and I think that'd be pretty rough. I would love to have abilities that just get stronger if you abandon other stuff. Let's say stop being a class, being a fully worker, a character that can't fight. Let me read that again. I would love to have abilities that just can get stronger. So make a character that can't fight, but so just make a profession, basically. You can't, you can kind of do that in Shadowlands now, actually. You do need to learn how to create the legendary stuff, but beyond that, you're like good to go. You still need to be like max level or whatever, but once you are, then like you're done. You don't need to ever leave anywhere, because everything is BOE and you can just buy all the things that you need and make stuff. I do get it though. I think being able to have some sort of like way to level just through professions, that would be pretty sweet. I would love to see that. Let's see. When Dungeon Finder was put into the game, it definitely hurt the strength of guilds. Now with the current cross-server group finder and not allowing guild invites cross-server, it's pretty much choked out guilds from succeeding. I only half agree, because I think it's the problem that players just are not adopting communities. Because communities they're pretty powerful actually, because they're cross-server, you can chat just fine, you can invite people into groups, that sort of thing. The only things that you can't do, right now at least, is trade stuff. Trade stuff normally. I mean, you could still, like, if you're in a raid or a dungeon, you can trade loot. Those things are okay. And there's no guild bank. I think that's it. And then there's the mythic raiding and all that stuff. So like 3 things, right? Three main pillars that are preventing communities from just being like guilds. And those are not small things, but I think that those are things that can be somewhat overcome. Otherwise, I think, to be perfectly honest, I think people are just lazy. I think they would rather deal with pugs than to deal with the politics and having to deal with like the same people over and over again. And that's it. People, the people who really thrive in that pug world, they'd rather just deal with anonymous characters and not even treat them like people. Sorry to be kind of mean about that. Lamau, remove reps, just give me normal vendors. Corthi system is good. Okay, what killed fun for Shadowlands for me is that all the classes I enjoyed became clunky as hell. I'm now 40 years old and I don't want to read 10 guides until I can play my character halfway, okay? This meta shit is getting on my nerves big time. If I did not have my 5 months of sub to go, I would have given up already. Also, the thing why I have no guild, I'm doing all the Covenant stuff on like 10 characters. It sounds like you're burdening yourself like really hard, dude. And it's not. Thank you for subbing, by the way. It's not the best. It's not the best move to make. Not to say that I'm telling you how to play, but I think you should. Well, I mean, I think you're in the process of reassessing how it is you soak in the game. But I think it's something you should really sit down and think over. Let's see. Playing WoW makes me angry. Take a break, dude. Take a break. Clearly, the game is not mad at you. Let's see. What if we had classes that are not for fighting or tanking or healing purposes? There are, though. I mean, they happen to be. But people will take their characters and they'll do whatever the hell they feel like with them. Upgraded graphics and zones in Azeroth would be nice. Fuck it. Yeah, why not? Big ass graphical upgrade. For For those who aren't familiar with it, there's a game called Tales of Arise. It's a Bandai game. It has that weeb feel to it. It has an anime look to it, but it also runs off of Unreal 5. And if you look at it, like seriously, look it up. Tales of Arise. Look at some of the gameplay footage. Actually, no. Don't look at the gameplay footage. Just look at the environmental footage. Just look at how the land is sculpted and crafted, and I can imagine like a re-resolution of World of Warcraft in that style. I don't think it's ever going to happen because that would involve literally remaking the entire world piece by piece, doodad by doodad, and I don't think that's feasible. But I think it just looks really good, and it came to mind. As for an actual big ass graphical upgrade, I could see them like introducing like higher fidelity, which to be honest is like really high already. Like if you really want, you can run your shit like. Let's see, what would I do? You would set your system. You would change the resolution scale to like as high as you can, even though your actual window size is not like that, and your system will tank. But it's gonna look. It'll look real. The screenshots will look amazing. Absolutely amazing. Change for the Horde and Alliance to Azeroth. Yeah, done. Easy. Oh, I'm on the permacap. Okay, cool. Back in ancient times when they announced level 70 in the BC teasers, I said this and meant it's. I still feel that way now. More horizontal options. Horizontal. Someone mentioned it already, but horizontal progression. This is tough because this would involve like remaking WoW from leveling all over again. More fuckery. But I feel like horizontal progression is the future, where we can have, more and more different options, but the same number of choices. And I think over the years that's been the way I can most simply explain it. And visually, I would say look at Diablo 3 for those sorts of things, where in Diablo 3 you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different ability buttons or whatever, and then you have a couple of talent selections or whatnot. But and okay, maybe Diablo 3 isn't the best example because they only had like one expansion. However, the fact that when they did have the expansion, you just had more choices. It created all sorts of different sorts of synergies and other possibilities. Having that, I think, would be in the long run, much more valuable. And they don't need to be like the most impactful things either. It could be a percentage point here, one more ability there, whatever. But that is that redefines the game in a fundamental way. And that would be, and doing that again would be really, really jarring for folks. I'm sure. Here's the thing about staying at 60. Alt leveling, expansion, skipping past the chroming time in the future. There's no more ability pruning or bloats. There's the focus on what works with the classes instead of adding new things. I'm sure there's more to that. It would take a couple more minutes to think of. Just a couple more minutes. Raid longevity. Get to level 60 and have 2 or 3 a mid game. Not that. A mid game. I would love to. I would love that feeling of, hey, let's progress through Molten Core. Just cause. I mean, that's really hard to do because of the way WoW has changed and reconstructed itself over time, that I can't really see it replicating a formula like Final Fantasy XIV, where you can just queue up for all that stuff and re-dive into all that old content as you're leveling. I could see that going back, though. I can definitely see that. Like, okay, cool, you're max level, you're 60 or whatever it is. You want to queue up for legacy raid content? Cool, you can. Boom, you're knocked down to like level 30. These are your stats. This is what you got to work with. Good luck, friends. You get Justice and Valor at the end. Done. That kind of falls into what would I say? Max level queuing for leveling content. Wait, it's not. Everyone's max level, whatever, something like that. So I could see something like that. I think that'd be kind of fun. No more expansion features, game features instead, as in the features of 10.0 don't die when 11.0 comes around. Technically, the Heart of Azeroth is still active, still works. They just kind of like were able to fudge their way out of it. Well, it works on Azeroth, but there's no Heart of Shadowlands, buddy. And the same thing might happen in this case. It might be like, okay, Covenant's cool, you get access to them here, but out on Azeroth, not so much. I still think it would be cool to have Soul Shape be baseline for everybody. Just everybody who learns Soul Shape, and that way they can collect. There would be a really good incentive to collect all the appearances and stuff, so that way even after Shadowlands is done, we can take that home with us to wherever. Excuse me. Narcissus does that already. Narcissus does not change. If I recall, it doesn't do the resolution change. It does. It just changes the toggles. And your, what is it called? It changes these things. Changes your AA, but doesn't change the resolution scale, if I recall that correctly. But yeah, I use that for Narcissus screenshots too, pretty often. Customization. Remove the restrictions on white or gray items. Re-add. Just go balls, not no balls. Go balls nasty on transmog. Yeah, I'd love to be able to just unlock and transmog everything. Whites, grays. What's the difference? I guess the difference there would be, technically those are not soul bound or whatever. However, we have seen that in 9.1.5 they're changing the way cosmetic tokens work. Where instead of just possessing it, you just click it and then it unlocks the appearance, and that's how it works. And then the item is consumed. I can see a very easy thing where whites and grays and stuff, they just become available. You just use them, pop, and then you get those appearances. I think that'd be cool. Let's see. Done. Oh, make babies not look like babies. First 3D model. S tier MILFs. What? Where did that come from? Add more 3D models to excuse me. Add more 3D models to armor, robes, etc. More stuff. That's not. I mean that's an improvement that I hope to see, but not something that I think is gonna like change the game. While armor design needs to get better, personally, I'm liking what we're seeing now. But I think the challenge that I think should be overcome. The challenge is that WoW body types are super diverse. They're like, a gnome is not a gnome is not a Tauren. A Tauren is not a Draenei. A Draenei is not an undead. And there's a lot of races that WoW needs to design its armor around. I would love to have for magic influence classes to change the source of power as I would love to have for magic influence classes change the source of power as it's like a light mage or a fire shaman. So they were gonna reject the other elements. Ew. Let's see, the plate sets are amazing, but the robes look like 2004. They're just pipes that somehow they're just pipes. No, I agree with that one. I think robes need to be like redone. Hell, we need trench coats. That's what we need. 9.0 Path of Ascension had the items. They just expanded them to everything in 9.1. What about Path of Ascension? We have no light damage dealer for distance. Well, you technically have paladins and holy priests and disc priests. And that's about it. Return of the Glyphs. Spec customize spells like green fire. I bitch about this one a lot. Glyphs are what expansion features came from. They change your class a tiny bit, or kind of a lot of a bit. Change your build, change the way you play. Didn't happen for everyone. But then after Glyphs went away, they turned into Legion legendaries. In fact, literal Glyphs effects were put into Legion legendaries, and then these Glyphs were also put into Azerite traits, and now not so much. now some of them have gone into like Shadowlands legendaries and things like that. But Glyphs were like it. And I think when Blizzard was like, okay, so what do we want to do? Let's do this, and then they're like, but then it's going to get in the way of Glyphs, and so they're like, okay, let's get rid of Glyphs, which I think was a bad move. I think Glyphs could have been it. Glyphs could have been the universal expansion feature, right? It could have been, think of it like this, folks. Imagine this. Imagine in Legion, we still have Glyphs. We don't have artifacts. We just have Glyphs. But then at the center, there are Glyphs that are specific to Legion content. So you get like cool effects for your class or your spec or whatever, whoop-de-doo. In BFA, they add more Glyphs that are related to the Heart of Azeroth or Azerite traits and essence, or essences or whatever. So you swap out some of your Legion stuff because like the BFA stuff seems to be more effective. It seems to be a little bit better, or you might find some new synergies. So you might be able to find some synergy between Legion Glyphs and BFA Glyphs. And then when Shadowlands rolls around, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Now I got all these other things to play with. The BFA Glyphs, they were cool, but they weren't that cool. Shadowlands Glyphs, though, wow, those are like great. And I'll mess around with Legion and Shadowlands Glyphs. So here you have this thing that governs expansion features, and it happens to be a form of horizontal progression because you can still access those old glyphs from Legion and Battle for Azeroth and whatever. So going forward, that could have been the thing. And it wasn't, unfortunately. Instead of a glyph system, they're like, okay, cool, let's do artifacts. Okay, let's throw out the whole thing now. Let's build something around Azerite traits. Okay, we're done with that. Let's sort of throw that out. Now we have Shadowlands legendaries and Covenant abilities and soulbinds and etc. And then when we're done with that, let's throw that out. But glyphs weren't cool. Glyph system, nah, forget it. It could have been cool. This won't make the list. I'll probably cross this off the list like once we're done. But it would have been neat. And I'm caught up with chat. Gangsta. Whew. Let me have some coffee real quick, guys. The stuff that'll make 10-0 different. And like not in a bad way, woo-woo. That is sort of the topic that we tackled. And I have a really crappy list. It's not a great list. But it's something that we thought up just kind of it's kind of on the fly. So, Dissolve the Divide. Does this qualify as stuff that'll make 10-0 different and like not in a bad way? I'm still, so we're going over the list now. I think probably. I think it'll do much more good than not. It's going to unite players. It's going to make grouping a little bit easier. It's going to make creating guilds a little bit easier. It's going to create new story dynamics for role players that now get to create scenarios where everyone can just kind of meet up and do stuff and talk to each other normally in different environments and locales that's normally wouldn't have been possible. I think it's an overall net win. Blizzard just needs to be extremely careful about what they do about faction identity and how they will try to preserve that. This is all this is mostly for the sake of gameplay, and with a foundation that Warcraft is more than just the war part of it. You got to actually play the games to really get into this, but we often see, even as early as Warcraft 3, we've seen people team up to fight the big bad. That's what happened at the end of Reign of Chaos. Everyone banded together to, take on the thing that they couldn't take on themselves. And throughout World of Warcraft's history, we've seen that. It's just that we didn't necessarily see Horde and Alliance team up. It was more like us, the champs of Azeroth, who happened to be on perhaps opposite sides of the opposite sides, unite under someone else's banner. Cenarian Circle, Armies of Legion Fall, Shattered Sun Offensive, those Argent Dawn, the class orders, all those things. Time and time again, we've seen that. But I think people have blinded themselves with this whole Horde versus Alliance mentality. And thanks to Blizzard, people have not let it go. And for some, they won't be able to let it go, period. And it'll cause them to feel disenfranchised. And it'll disrupt their sense of identity. But for the sake of gameplay, I think that this will definitely be one of those things. Profession improvements. I am hoping that at a planning stage, Blizzard is like, okay, let's, as soon as they started thinking of 10.0, they're like, okay, professions first. If they take a professions first sort of approach, I think overall it'll be better, because it's not a new system that we need to learn. It's professions. We get to make cool stuff, and it'll take time and efforts and collaboration and a healthy economy to make this cool stuff for people. We've seen numerous games where games are pretty heavily dependent on the player economy. In this case, it's not, because we have loot drops and all sorts of things, and the loots are typically better than what professions can offer. But I think if Blizzard can design a path for professions to create high-end prestige items, whether it's because it's really powerful, or because they just look dope and they were hard to make, and they show off the efforts of the crafter that made it, I think that'd be pretty sweet. I think having that sort of focus, it makes that sense of accomplishment feel a lot more organic, because you see someone with a certain transmog, somebody made that, somebody put in the work for that, and somebody bought it too. And I think there's something cool to that. There's a lot more that could come from that. I'm just trying to speak really, really generally. Grinds that we can, I guess this one is creating grinds that we can finish. As in, if I want to hit that best in slot, cool. I think Shadowlands almost got there, and Conduits messed it up. Conduits, they only have so much of an impact, but I guess their mere existence created ire within players. Same thing goes for like Shards of Domination, which, there are issues with those, and other things. Like, it's that less impactful feelings, like, renown, things like that. I think if we can get to a point where people can either feel like they're done, or otherwise feel like they're not going to be punished for not being on all the time, which I think that they are, but I think if they can more strongly deliver on that message, it'd be better. Player housing. I think the messaging, I think this would make 10.0 really different. It would change the whole landscape of WoW as we know it. It would change endgame. It would change how we idle around. And people will still idle around in towns. They're still going to be like semi-AFK while they're reading Reddit, watching videos, looking at streams while they're waiting for their queue to pop. That's fine too. But this just gives us something more to do when we're idling around. it gives incentives for people to go out into the world and farm for stuff, whether it's because, oh, there's a new there's a new carpentry and a wood chopping profession, and we do that stuff, and or there are achievements that are related to new recipes, or there are drops from old raid instances that we need to complete in a certain fucked up way in order to get it, or hey, it's time walking. Ooh, cool. And time walking, that's when you get these certain special kinds of recipes, and that would that would strongly incentivize people to do time walking or other events. And you know, just like how pets, how they incentivize people to run certain content in certain ways at certain times so they can get those things. Housing can deliver it in the same way. And of course, there's the housing itself, being able to express yourself, being able to express your achievements beyond a UI or a number that's related to that UI. If you can actually walk people through what you've done in your World of Warcraft career, that'd be fucking awesome. Changing gathering professions, I think that would be a cool thing that would make things different. For being able to have everyone contribute a little bit to the player economy, I think would be like really helpful, and it'd be like at a glance, like, oh, I see that thing, let me pick it. You know, small thing that would help. All that needs to be done in that case would be adjust profession numbers to counterbalance the higher number of items that'll be showing up. I don't think it's a big deal. Having racial quest lines would be cool. I don't know if it would make it really different per se. Quests tend to be a one and done sort of thing. They add flavor, they add emotion, they add context, they add lore. But I don't think it would make it. I don't think it would be like necessarily like different. It would be better, but I don't think this will like revolutionize, or I don't think it'll fit the context here. Removing race and class restrictions, I think that'd be huge. I said this earlier. All that needs to be done is write the story, craft a brief story, a brief narrative that explains why undead demon hunters are a thing, and that's all that needs to be done. Or void elf, void elf demon hunters. That sounds busy. Yeah, they'd be like, all right, imagine the starting quest where Illidan or whoever, they're like, so void and fell, and you're like, yeah, absolutely. Are you really sure? Void and fell. This is some pretty crazy shit, man. Absolutely. Let's fucking do it. Okay. So, same thing with like Lightforge Draenei. Light and fell? Really? Yeah, man. Absolutely. But I think that would be like a huge thing. Flag, race, and class achievements. I don't think this would be a big deal, but I think it would be like a nice little flavor thing that would help to. That falls into some of the category too. I think it would help to just add more flavor to our identity in the World of Warcraft. Let max players queue for leveling content, and it needs a good loop. So this one is big, but I think it'd be great for casual folk that want, you know, more casual folk that at least is interested in grouping for content. This adds a shitload of variety to it, because you can queue up for, you know, as a max level player, and you'll go into, well, freaking any of the 100+ dungeons that are available in WoW. And if other people happen to be in there too and they're leveling, cool, everyone's leveling together. Or they're incentivized to complete stuff and get some cool stuff with it. I'd love to see a big revamp with dungeons too. Things like something similar to Final Fantasy XIV's player commendations. Without, I think there's like a lot of complicated stuff behind that, but having some sort of commendation system that incentivizes people to stay, I think that would be better than a system to punish people for leaving, or something like that. So I really don't think negative reinforcement works in that sense. It clearly, you know, and yeah, I don't think that would work. Game-wide currency, that pretty much falls under what I was talking about with this. So that'll be the thing. Ending world quests, I think that there could be improvements, but I don't think ending them is necessarily one of them. I feel like having, fill up the bars. They sound boring. But in practice, they're, to me at least, they're amazing. They're wonderful because it allows that flexibility to do the things that you want as long as you're contributing towards it. Covenant Callings, I think that was a step in the right direction. Although the callings themselves, they're kind of annoying because like I gotta go and pick them up, and I think that's kind of dumb. I think they should just be like, things that you don't need to pick up. You just turn them in and get credit for it. I think that'd be cool. Stay on Azeroth for a change. Resolve some of the stuff. I think this barely makes the list because it's just the plot of what's going on. But that's important too. A lot of folks have been dissatisfied with Shadowlands because it's Shadowlands, and it's maybe if Blizzard had the time and they didn't have to deal with COVID stuff, maybe it could have been fleshed out into a realm of realms that a lot of folks could have enjoyed, with lots of cool story, references, and things like that. But unfortunately, didn't work out like that. But maybe fundamentally, people were just not interested in leaving Azeroth. They just wanted to, take care of stuff at home, and maybe that was like the big takeaway. Being able to stay on Azeroth, it would help. But I don't. Well, okay, you know what? It'll stay on. Game stays at level 60 forever. I doubt this is going to happen. It would be so jarring for people. It would. People would talk shit about this, like hardcore. But I don't know how it's going to be handled otherwise. It sounds weird because it's going to be like, okay, guys, let's make a new character. Level 1 through 10, yes, you can choose your normal starting zone, or you can choose Exile's Reach. Cool. And then you can choose between this many expansions. Do whatever you want, guys. And then you have to play through Shadowlands leveling content for 10 levels. So new players must almost play through like the zone content, and they'll play through maybe like half of it, and then they'll get to max level. They'll be eligible to go to like the next thing, and so they will, and then they won't know what it is that they were playing through, and that's it. That feels weird. Fuck it, I'm gonna put it on the list. I guess I could say that. I think it'll be so controversial. I guess no one. Yeah, I think a lot of people won't agree with this, but yeah, because this means so much. It'd be like a huge. Yeah. It's going on. I'm being skittish now. Big ass graphical upgrade. I don't think it's going to be that big of an upgrade. Like, we saw subtle things. We've seen the fidelity in World of Warcraft go up with every single expansion, pretty much. So I think this is kind of it's given that we're going to see some graphical upgrade, but as for a really, really big one, nah, not really. Horizontal progression feels like more of a pipe dream, even more so than player housing. Player housing is something that can be tacked on. Boom. Let's do it, guys. Let's add all these new features. Horizontal progression rewrites the identity of World of Warcraft. And not that Blizzard hasn't done it before, but I think they're feeling more skittish about doing it again. A mid-game that falls into max level queuing for leveling content. Actually, I did talk about that, so I'm not even going to put that here. Go balls nasty on transmog. Yeah, I think the conversations and the clamor for it have been pretty loud. I don't know if it's been loud enough to convince Blizzard to make those sorts of changes, but I think it's possible, and I think people would like that. So, and then glyphs. I don't even know what I was saying about glyphs. Bring back glyphs. I'm gonna leave it on there because I think that if they're going to add more glyphs, I think glyphs, if anything, if they're going to stay cosmetic, go nuts with the glyphs. People want green fire, red fire, purple fire, orange fire, doo-doo colored fire. Sure, go ahead. If I want to swing as a paladin, if I want to swing like a golden hammer, cool. If I want it to be like a blood skull or something like that, you know, as like if I want to be like a Zandalari blood troll paladin person, cool. I think I should be able to do that as well. I don't know about void hammers, void paladin sort of stuff. I mean, that'd be kind of cool too if they can put in the efforts for something like that. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna add something in. Die system. This is tough because and this is one of those shower thoughts that I've had. If they can do some sort of die system in WoW, they're gonna have to also rethink the way they even make their armor sets. Because when you kind of break down the armor models into what they are, they just look like little pictures and they're shaped a certain way and whatever. But the way that they set those up that whole process needs to be redone from the ground up. And so what I think that means, what I'm trying to say is, if they were to introduce a die system where they can be like, okay, here is a certain color, and there are 14 different dyes that you can apply to these sorts of things. Now, right now, WoW, the WoW team, they handcraft all of their items. And when they do the recolors, they handcraft that stuff too. I think if they go a different route with how they make it, and I'm no artist, I have no idea how these programs work. If they can like somehow segment all the different color schemes, like all the different color palettes from the ground up, then that could be what creates the foundation for a die system. What that means, unfortunately, though, is that this die system probably won't work for old gear. All the old gear is just what it is, and these dies are only going to apply to like new gear, something like that. But I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be really cool if they were to introduce some sort of die system. It would require like tremendous work on the back end. But if I were to choose some of these things, I don't know, like the things that I think would make 10.0 the most different would be the divide, housing. I guess some of these top ones: the divide, professions, housing. Queuing for content. Oh shit, it's like a lot of these, man. Queuing for content, race, class restrictions. I'm not going over like these lists like again, but all these things would be pretty cool.